Wonderful. So Manu, your son is married. You're finally joining the pack. How are you feeling and what do you expect to get out of today?
I feel good. I feel grateful. I just want to be present in the call. That's my expectation. And how do you feel? What do you expect?
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled because last week, thank you, I finally understood precession. So, and moving forward, we've been actually looking at the team, my leadership team. I am moving forward. I'm gonna train them on 5 things, or rather talk to them and come together, and like it's how we're gonna operate in our school, right? So I'm pulling together the whole thing that we've like in all the 2 years. I think we've been doing this for about 2 years, I think. Yeah. And so the things that
But I paused the recording, so I don't know how much of that got on the recording. So I'm just going to quickly share here. For those of you who missed it, we talked about this. Oh my goodness! And if it didn't get on the recording, if you're watching the recording and you want something on it, either contact me or Manu, or Joe or Ann, and let them explain to you what this graphic is all about.
Steve or Manu is cool. You could stop right
yes.
there.
Yep. Go, Joe.
But Steve, I would suggest that you copy that piece where it makes the parallel of economics and logistics that is governed by precession, and say what you just copy and put in the chat.
You mean that wording in the
paragraph.
book?
Yes, I went on to read that.
Joe, you got to do that. If you can get into ebook, copy that out and stick it in the chat.
Sure.
In fact,
it will be very useful because it was.
I invite you to share, Joe. I'm so sorry. Somehow I cut it all off, and whoever is watching this is they're going to be ripped off. If you're watching this and you didn't see that, then go to the links in the chat, and there'll be 2 links on precession.
I went on to reason, Joe.
Yeah, this one right up to here.
Yeah, just go down. Yeah. Right. Yes, I think so.
I think just to all orbit. We only read the first.
That's where it is
in the atom.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
in the chat.
Yeah, so put that in the chat. Copy that and stick that in the chat. Because that when Bucky talks about bodies in motion on bodies in motion, the electrons going around the nuclei of the atoms, which are the electrons are spinning around the nuclei. Inside the nuclei are protons and neutrons that are spinning around each other as well, and then come back out to the atoms. The atoms in the molecules are spinning around each other as well. So the atoms inside the molecules, and then the molecules are spinning around each other to form a thing, to form a star or a planet or you or me. And then we're all in motion at the same time. Bodies in motion on bodies in motion. Nothing sits still. Cool. Any other input there, Manu?
No, I'm fine.
All right, very cool. Okay, now we're ready to read some more, Anne.
Okay. Thank you for pausing.
Okay.
All orbit their respectively most inter-attractively dominant nuclei of the moment. I recognize that overall interproximities vary and nature. Okay.
Sorry about that. Wait, that should be the right page. Hang on. So,
and that Newton.
And that
which one is that? Okay, and that Newton. Yeah, and that Newton's law of system inter-attractiveness varies inversely at the second power rate of the mathematical distances intervening, as well as in respect to the product of the masses of any 2 considered bodies. All of the foregoing evolutionary intertransformings are observed, with occasion frequently changing interdominances. Do I pause or do I go on?
Any comments or questions up to this point? Okay, I think you go on. Are we good?
Yes, I'll continue reading, huh? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I assumed that nature would evaluate my work as I went along. If I was doing what nature wanted done, and if I was doing it in promising ways permitted by nature's principles, I would find my work being economically sustained and vice versa. In which latter negative case, I must quickly cease doing what I had been doing and seek logically alternative courses until I found the new course that nature signified her approval of by providing for its physical support. Wherefore, I concluded that I would be informed by nature if I proceeded in the following manner. A, committed myself, my wife, and our infant daughter directly to the design, production, and demonstration of artifact accommodation of the most evident but yet unattended to human environment advantaging physical evolutionary tasks, and paid no attention to earning a living in humanity's established economic system, yet found my family's and my own life's needs being unsolicitedly provided for by seemingly pure happenstance and always only in the nick of time, and being provided for only coincidentally, yet found that this only coincidentally unbudgetable yet realistic support persisted, and did so, F, only so long as I continued spontaneously to commit myself unreservedly to the task of developing relevant artifacts, and if I, G, never tried to persuade humanity to alter its customs and viewpoints, and never asked anyone to listen to me, and spoke informatively to others only when they asked me to do so, and if I, H, never undertook competitively to produce artifacts others were developing and attended only to that which no others attended, then I could tentatively conclude that my two assumptions were valid. One, that nature might economically sustain human activity that served directly in the mainstream realization of essential cosmic regeneration, which had hitherto been accomplished only through seeming right-angled side effects of the chromosomically focused biological creatures, and two, that the generalized physical law of precessional behaviors does govern socioeconomic behaviors, as do also the generalized laws of acceleration and ephemeralization.
Okay, let's pause right there for just a second. Wow,
Thank you.
what a mouthful.
Yes.
Joe, do you want to go back to the previous page? I just want to go up one more page, if you would. I want to see A up there. I want to pay homage to my first wife because this, because
I
this
was going to talk about that too. Go on, Steve.
because I committed myself, my wife, and our infant daughter directly to the design, production, and demonstration of artifact accommodation of the most evident, but as yet unattended to human environmental advantaging physical evolutionary tasks, paid no attention to earning a living in humanity's established economic systems. That is exactly what my wife would like to complain about. Go to the next page and you'll read B there. And this is the part, this is homage to my first wife. I mean, she did not understand this. I had a midlife crisis and I'm looking around saying, this is all stupid. There's a bunch of people running around in a rat race and nobody's stopping to look at reality the way that it really is. So I just want to pay homage to my wife there. Any other comments or questions? Manu, go ahead.
Yes. I mean, if you have been in Kiyosaki's circles, he always repeat this. If you are in business, if your partner, your wife, and your immediate family is against it, your chances of success are zero.
Oh.
Yeah,
Zero.
so true.
Yes. The least they could do is to be neutral about it.
Right.
And this is explainable with this. Who are the persons that you interact the most with? Let's go to that interaction that we talk about.
Family.
And if those are predominant in your active time, then, and they are fighting that right angle, smooth going thing, what happened? You are being sabotaged, or you are sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
So the practical lesson is this one. I don't want to say it, but would you leave a bad marriage and continue with your life? And if you do so, what are the consequences?
Yeah.
Alimony.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That was my comment. But I couldn't just, I couldn't resist commenting on that, because something quite important. I've seen so many cases of friends or family where that applies in the most negative way.
Manu,
Really?
now that you mention it, it's not just family, it's also the community around, right? So like right now, the one that we face the most difficulty within my organization are the teachers who don't get the business side of education. And they're so used to the public school system and they don't even realize that there is money involved with the public school systems. The fact that the schools, the education is provided by the government, but there's a whole machinery of business around it. There's money and all that involved, right? Budgeting, etc. And they don't see that. So in the school, whenever like very often we have to make very business decisions or financial decisions, otherwise we can't function. Then it becomes it becomes so those people, they're the one that fight you the hardest, and then at the same time they make the most comments, and it really drags people down. So fortunately for us, oftentimes they're the ones that leave, but even that, when they leave, it becomes a problem for us, because parents are saying, oh, your teachers are leaving. Well, they need to move on, because education, sometimes there's a limit as to how far you can go with incomes and stuff, right? Unless the commitment is to education itself, because otherwise we have to keep charging higher and higher. But I'm just saying that it's not just the family, it's the organization. Any organization, when you have people in it who don't get the business side and they think they do, it also becomes a huge problem, and very often we may have to just go our separate ways as well. Okay, you got a point. Thank you, Manu.
And Anne, I got to tell you something. The entire education system was based on the Prussian. I think Joe knows more about this. It was based on the Prussian educational system.
Right.
From back, it was pre-World War II. And go ahead, Joe. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's just the way it was structured, and I think that from what I remember, it was the last name was Fika, and it was basically the whole idea was about creating good citizens.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about learning or kind of discovering your own purpose.
I would say, rather than creating good citizens, creating good workers, people who would fit in.
Yeah, that's a better way
to the system that was around them.
Yeah.
And what you're, Joe, you go ahead and get complete, because I think you are the guy who actually told me about this. So say what more you have to say on it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it's just an interesting story. I had sent out I think a YouTube a long time ago about it. and some of the restrictions and how the system was broken. But historically speaking, I'm trying to figure out the name of the individual. It'll come to me in a moment. But no, I'm pretty complete. It was just, again, it was focused more on less on education and just more on order.
On order.
Yeah, I mean,
What I
that's
remember you telling me, Joe, was the idea of taking students out of a circle and sticking them in a chair so they're
Right.
all facing the front of the room and not interacting with each other. So they're avoiding the interrelationships of the nodes. Instead of being nodes interrelating with each other, they became pawns facing the front of the room, separate from each other, focusing on a teacher instead of engaging with each other. And what you're doing, Anne, is you're breaking that model. You're
Right.
saying any education that does not involve entrepreneurial, or that does not involve the possibility of making a profit doing exactly what I'm doing the way I want to do it. You know, back in the old days, you produce a product, it goes into a manufacturing machine and it gets distributed to, it was mass production for mass consumption. That no longer is a valid model.
Yeah.
Everybody has to find their own purpose. And if every one of your students just found 100,000 people in the billions of people on the earth, if they just did their thing and they collected $10 a year from 100,000 people, they'd be making $1 million a year doing what they're doing, what they love to do.
Mm.
And
Oh, I love that.
yeah, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying, hey, instead of sitting in a room facing the front of the room at 90 degrees to the teacher, be at 90 degrees with each other and create value for each other based on your own perspective, your own input. Be at 90 degrees with each other. And I want to say something else about this 90 degrees. I think intuitively, human beings understand this 90-degree relationship with each other. In fact, for me, when I go into a court of law or I'm standing in front of a judge, they want me to put my arm to a square, 90 degrees.
Mm.
And intuitively, we say, I swear I will, 90 degrees. And we miss this interrelationship thing. And so people aren't going to get this if you're listening to the recording, but it's n squared minus n over 2. Every person I put in my sphere of influence, I count those n's. If I have 13 people there, it's 13 squared minus 13 divided by 2. Bam, I have that many interrelationships. I have that much potential in my relationships. That's why smaller groups are better. That's why instead of getting 1 million customers, it's better to get 1,000 customers or 100,000 customers and do the thing I like and get a little bit of money for it. Collect a little royalty. That I'm kind of complete. Any other comments? Manu's down there with his hand going.
That's a question. 2 questions.
Okay. You want to stop sharing, Joe, so we can see each other more clearly?
Okay. You heard about the General Education Board, right?
Yeah.
When was it established and who established it? That's the first question.
Joe, do you know what
The
he's saying?
second question is, you heard about the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
When was it established? How was it established?
On Jekyll Island, and what year was that? Was that after World War II?
I think it's in the
And,
20s. Jekyll Island.
and when has the consequence, what has been the consequence of those 2 things on the general population? Let's start with first. The General Education Board was established in 1902 by John D. Rockefeller, one of the leaders.
That's right.
Yes. And the board objective was to standardize education, just like Standard Oil. to have it across. Objective was to train people who could work, as Steve said, in the system, in the factory, linear, right? Remember those times, the Industrial Revolution and the consequence of being concentration of power into hands, right? The Federal Reserve, what was it made? When was it established? 1930.
That's right. Looking it up right now.
Okay. And what did he do? Take the control of money out of the hands of the individual. What has been the consequence of it is that a whole generation has been locked out of financial thinking.
That's right.
Mm.
We have PhDs who are Neanderthal when it comes to finance. And finance, to me, is credit. It is the door of the physical exchange. Is finance. Is what happened with. But to change anything between two individuals, you need credit, right?
Right.
From one to the other. You know, you have the flow of the good or service this way, you have the financial flow that way, or the credit flow. I'm not talking about finance in a restrictive way that we talk about banking today. No. I'm talking about what happened. We exchange because we trust each other, right?
Right.
Otherwise, we're just transactional in the market, and you still need to have a market. When Steve want to send me a book, he has to outlay first, get the book, send it to me. It's a credit, isn't it? Even if even a gift, I have that in my mind. You know, there's what you call life or reciprocity. You know, I'm not talking about instant reciprocity. So credit is what fuels the exchange.
Right.
But how many people, people are, they don't understand.
No.
We went to the extent that we create inflation. And we be able to feed that to people to accept it as natural. Whereas inflation is just, and always will be, like Friedman said, a monetary effect. A monetary phenomenon, although it has devastating effect on individuals physically, it is created by money and the supply of money, the way it's done. So I don't know if this was done on purpose, but it's coincidental, and it's very important to get the type of education that Anne is talking about.
I agree.
And
people to learn to recognize it.
And I want to reaffirm what you said, Manu, by a quote from the book, the Jekyll Island book. It says, by making it appear to be a problem of national economy rather than private banking practice, the door could then be opened to use tax money rather than the banker's own funds for paying off losses. Yes. And that practice started from the Creature of Jekyll Island book. Jekyll Island is over near Georgia in the east, near the Prussian countries over there, and near Russia. And all of these economists met there, and bankers met there, and they devised a way to put the burden of their financial losses on the people, exactly the way the British Empire expanded, and made sure that the guys who didn't, that the investors lost their money, but the founders didn't, the people who owned the assets didn't. This idea of imperialism, it continues today. When we had the big
Jekyll Island is in the US still.
is over by the state of Georgia in the
Yeah,
US.
it was a private island for the wealthy New Yorkers.
Yeah, it's near
bankers.
the state of Georgia. I thought it was near the.
Yes, it's up, you know, it's in the US.
Okay,
They went
good.
there, they went there by train.
Okay, good. Okay, so it says here by Georgia and the state of Georgia, and I just thought it was over there. So it's in America. They all got together, and we had the continuation of this ideology occurred in 2008 when the banks crashed. The taxpayers bailed out the banks.
Mm.
Every time there's an industrial crisis, the taxpayer bail out the business people. It started with this, the Creature of Jekyll Island, and it continues today.
That's what happened in 2008. What do we do?
Yeah.
There was issuance of currency given to the banks, and the bank didn't clean up the acts. They just took it, inflated their balance sheets to mask the losses.
It's
You see, if I have a business, asset is 100, liabilities is 101. I'm bankrupt, right? But if I'm given credit in such a way that my assets become 1,000 and my liabilities are 900, but the 100 that was impaired wasn't 101 that was impaired, hasn't been flushed out. It's still a cancer. And that cancer will still grow. And that's what we live in.
Yeah.
I mean, between 2008 or 2007 and today, we haven't solved a problem of credit. Debt is only, debt, I don't know. Joe, what has it done? Double?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What has debt done? World debt. Has it doubled since
Yeah,
2008?
I mean,
Is there? It's growing exponentially.
it's grown exponentially. I mean, and
It's
it's
more than
essentially
double.
impossible to pay back. I mean,
So I'm saving dollars, you know, and the dollar is losing steam every day.
Yeah.
What business am I in? It just doesn't make sense.
it's
Makes sense.
you know, in a book that I was reading recently, it was called they called it FIRE, you know, in the sense that finance is financing itself, like you know, essentially that you know, that the banks are financing themselves essentially, and that it's, you know, between FIRE, finance, insurance, and real estate are financing themselves.
Yeah.
And essentially that it's you know, almost like a Ponzi scheme, to tell you
It
the
is
truth.
Ponzi scheme. So here are the bankers investing in something, and then they create an insurance company which guarantees the investment. So if the investment falls over, the insurance company pays for it. This is exactly what happened in 2008. Is that not only did the government bail out all the Wall Street, Shearson Lehman, J.P. Morgan, they bailed all those people out. The insurance company that guaranteed those people had trouble, so the government recapitalized the insurance company, which paid the. I mean, it's totally crazy.
It really is.
And I want to point out here that early on, because I don't know how I got it was over in Georgia. Here's an interesting thing that that I posted in the chat over here that I think is worth noting. It says during World War II. Let me see if I can find this. Anyway, I won't read it. I'll just recap it. During World War II, here was Jekyll Island over by Georgia, where all these rich people had meant to create this financial empire. When they looked out and saw German submarines all around there, the U.S. government was afraid that the Germans were going to come and kidnap all these rich people. So in 1947, they ordered, or earlier during World War II, they ordered all the civilians off of Jekyll Island. And it was so abandoned that the state of Georgia bought the island for $970,000. I mean, it's just crazy.
It is great.
And so, Anne, what you're to come back to critical path and what Buckminster Fuller is trying to teach us, and to look at your mission statement, your mission, your life mission, Anne, and what you're doing to teach people to integrate business and or interrelationships of which business is a natural part, the idea of exchanging and trading. Hey, I have something of value, I give it to you, instead of giving it to a centralized industrial complex and becoming workers for the complex. It's the natural order of things for us to interchange with each other and exchange ideas and exchange value and create value with each other.
Mm.
What a mission you have, and how you
Thank
convince
you.
how you convince the crazy people around you to pull their heads out of their fannies and see the value of business, your teachers, and see the value that business is a natural outcome of interrelationships.
Mm.
It's a natural
Yep.
outcome. And again, look at your formula, n squared minus n over 2, to see how many interrelationship potentials you have in any interaction. Take the number of people involved, square the number, subtract the number from the squared number, and divide it by 2, and there's your potential interrelationships. And if you cannot identify those interrelationships, you're going to be missing a boat. So quick, get a mentor, get a consultant or somebody and say, help me identify what I'm missing here. This is what I find so valuable about Bucky's formula.
Mm.
And just for the heck of it, I'm going to find that because somebody may be listening to this recording, I'm going to find that cosmography chart and cosmography, and just show you what I'm saying about the n squared minus n over 2. Here it comes. Because you've seen this before, but to actually understand what Bucky's saying, it's taken me 3 years, and I've been lectured by Manu over and over again for the last 3 years. And I have a glimpse of what it's about. So there, and there's that formula, n squared minus n over 2. And here are the nodes in the relationships. These are the number of people or the number of entities, the number of businesses in relationship. This could be people to people or people to business or combinations. A could be a person, B could be a business, and A could be another business or whatever. And so if you end up having 5 nodes or 5 assets, there are 10 interrelationships. If you have 6, there are 15. If you have 7, there are 21. If you have 7, there's another way to configure the 21. He just shows different pictures here. But all of these numbers of interrelationships are based on that formula right there, n squared minus n over 2.
It's actually an exponential relationship. Relationship. N squared minus n divided by 2 is exponential.
Yeah.
So it's something that goes like that. If the number of events increases, the number of relationships, it's exponentially related.
Yeah, it's very near a Fibonacci sequence. Very near Fibonacci, but a little bit different. So anyway, I wanted to make sure we tied this into this conversation because I didn't get it until this year. You know, and I had to listen to Manu many, many times. and I'm just beginning to understand what it's about. Okay, Joe, you want to share or any other conversation?
No, let's continue reading.
Okay, we're on the next page. Yeah, there we go. In 1927. Who wants to read?
I can read.
Okay.
You give it. The 1927 processional assumptions became ever more convincingly substantiated by experiences. Only the impossible continued to happen. I became ever more like.
I just was laughing.
I became ever more convinced that I must go on developing artifacts that would make possible humanity's successful accomplishment of survival activities so much more logically and efficiently as to render the older, less efficient ways to be spontaneously abandoned by humanity. I resolved never to attack or oppose undesirable socioeconomic phenomena, but instead committed myself to evolving and cultivating tools that would accomplish humanity's necessitous
necessitous tasks.
necessitous tasks in so much easier, more pleasant, and more efficient ways that without thinking about it, the undesirable ways would be abandoned by society. I liked the popular 1944 song, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative.
Okay, let's pause right there before you leave. Go back to that page. Because, Anne, I think this is really essential. What he's saying here is that rather than argue with people, he just disregarded the argument and moved on to find people who are willing to listen.
Yeah.
It isn't worth arguing with people. If they don't get it, they're not going to get it.
Right.
Yep.
You have staff right now who do not get it. And if they are afraid of losing their job, and so they kiss your butt and say, oh, yeah, I get it, and they don't get it, they will be an anchor on your, they'll be an anchor on your ship. It's tough to be a leader and say,
It is.
it's tough to be a leader and say, you don't get it. This is not a good fit. It's not about you. It's about me. And, you know, if you were in charge, you could make your decisions. We do it your way, but you're not. I'm here and I have a vision and I'm sorry, I can't explain it to you. I wish I could. I'm just not clever enough, you know, and help that person move into something else. Give them something to do, but do not let them drag you back. Okay, Anne?
Yep.
Promise me.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. We're moving forward.
Yeah. And
I
you guys
find
know
it-
the song? You guys know this song, Accentuate the Positive, Eliminate the Negative from 1944? I'm going to find it while Manu talks to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that I find it very powerful. The power of a no and the decision to consequently move away and assume the consequences. Know when to say no.
Right.
If it's not enough, move away. And then assume the consequences of your moving away.
Right.
There's a price to it. And this is, you know, it's very important, it's very powerful, but it's also very scary.
Yeah.
In one's personal life. Right?
No, I agree with you 100%. No, I mean, it's,
What I was saying is that let's just take an example of finances. You know, like they say that in most divorces, you know, a big chunk of divorces is because of financial problems, because of money. Right. If you know that, how do you build your relationship? Do you build your relationship by doing like some people say they do prenuptials? Or do you do in a way that you are a team that is so successful that if, God forbid, anything happened, everybody walk away happy that wise? What choice do you make?
Yeah. That's a rhetorical question, right, Manu? Or do you want an answer, Manu? Or is that rhetorical?
I would like you to answer that, Steve.
All right, so rephrase the question. If what
I'm
happens,
saying,
what?
I'm saying studies show that a good number of families that dislocate is because of financial.
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you are getting to a relationship and you know that, what choice will you make with regard to finances? Will you make sure that
I have
everybody
such a smart ass
understands?
comment right now. It's just like, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
marry a wealthy woman.
I don't.
I didn't want to say that. I had to say it. Marry a wealthy woman.
Well, you are stealing.
Well, maybe you're still gonna work. You're gonna work for it. I'll tell you that. That's what my mother always said. My mom said, "You can marry somebody that's wealthy, but you'll work to be the hardest money you'll ever work for."
Well, let me just put out. Sometimes I tell this like a joke. Is that if you meet a prospective partner, like Anne, yeah, we all see that Anne has brown eyes, right? And then her hair is brown. Don't spend your time telling Anne that she's a blonde when you are cutting her, right? Find out what is true of Anne.
Mm.
Be overt to what is true of you. And let's talk about where we want to go.
Yeah.
And try to candidly, truthfully disclose in preparation of this adventure that we want to take together.
Yeah, and just to go along with your story, after 26 years of being married, I said to my wife, okay, now our kids have almost graduated. We have only one more kid in high school. We're about ready to live our lives. So let's get ready to go to China and live under rocks and speak Chinese and be with people. And my wife goes, I'll go to China, but I'm staying in the Hilton Hotel. And, you know, there was just no basis of communication.
Sounds like you're on the same page.
Yeah. At least we were going to be in the same country, but she was going to stay in a Hilton Hotel and I was going to go out and be with people. So,
but Steve, the beauty is that, and I hope that you part ways with that acrimony, because that's the killing.
Yeah, we did. We're best of friends. But
you understand?
Yeah.
You know, for all the critics that people can bring against Bill Gates, in terms of decision making, in terms of sorting out his life, in terms of assuming the consequences, is an ace. Am I wrong or right? I'm not bringing ethics here. I'm just talking about a guy who can make decisions and carry through and assume the consequences.
Okay, I'm going to share sound, and here we go.
To accentuate the positive feeling, minus the negative, latch on to the affirmative. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. You got to spread joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to the minimum. Have faith or pandemonium, liable to walk upon the sea.
To illustrate his last remark, Jonah in the whale.
Well, this was supposed to have the lyrics come up on it, and it doesn't. So I'll find another one with lyrics, but that's the song. You got to accentuate the positive from 1944 that Bucky thought was so cool. I'll get the lyrics and put them in there and find another link for the thing. Okay, we ready to go back to our reading, Joe?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. All right. The 1927 processional assumptions became ever more convincingly substantiated. Wait a minute, I read this. All the foregoing was then the professional course I deliberately adopted in 1927. I had only the remaining days of my life to invest. It involved swift sorting out of the complex of design, production, testing, and demonstration tasks to be performed. What was the order of inherent priorities and successively overlapping interdependencies. Socioeconomic procession by environment controlling artifacts was a strategic course that obviously could be steered only by maximum reliance on the intuitive sensibilities, frequent positive position, determination, and course correcting, plus constant attendance upon the thoughts evolvingly generated by our commitment and its moment-to-moment experience produced new insights into the relative significance of the whole family of evolving events. It involves swift recognition and correction of all errors of judgment. It required being always comprehensively considerate. As navigational aids and high seas life preserving devices wisely to be employed in sailing such a course in heretofore uncharted socioeconomic seas. I have patented every one of what seemed to me to be strategically important items amongst my inventions, and have done so as they occurred in all economically relevant countries around the world. This has caused their threefold any and all royalties ever accruing to those patents. I did so for the following reasons. Have no academically earned scientific degrees, I could not qualify for membership in any scientific societies and could therefore not publish my discoveries officially in their journals. I found that filing of patent claims established an equally valid scientific record of my discoveries and inventions. The preamble text of my patent claims are often philosophically and historically enlightening. Of necessity, they are meticulously specific in respect to the technological means of practical realizations of the inventions. The worth of a patent, however, is not established by the merit of the invention, but by the expertness with which it claims of invention are written. Almost anyone can obtain a patent from the patent office. What history has shown to be socioeconomically important is whether those claims can survive in the highest court trials of patent infringement cases. Vast knowledge of the precedents in court decision history and of the patent strategy of great corporations is essential in the writing of the claims.
Let's pause back there, go back to that again, because I think this is important to understand. He is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, okay, I can develop a product or an idea, and I can develop a patent on it, and I submit the patent in. Somebody else can go to the patent office, read my patent, and write a better patent, and can outclaim me. And if I go into court, it's not about who invented the thing first, it's about whose patent description survives case precedent. And if there's some trivial aspect of some case law in some prior case that pushes the needle to the right, if my patent doesn't cover that problem, then somebody else can invent the same product I've invented, change the description to cover that thing, and come in and have me out of the game. So he's saying here, patents are crazy. That's what I'm getting out of this, that it just doesn't, there's so many fine points and there's so many good attorneys that patents are of little value. Anyway, that's what I take out of it. Does everybody agree, or anybody have any opposing views? What do you got?
I'm not opposing. I agree with what you say. What I understood is just that he said that he didn't have any degree, so he couldn't publish in what's say
Right.
scientific journals and things like that,
That's right.
where his peer recognized it because he wasn't a peer of those guys. So he has to go to the patent. And what is a patent office? And what is important is that you have to be very, very meticulous in
Yeah.
the description of your claim to be
Yeah.
able to cover every eventuality
Yeah.
of somebody claiming otherwise,
Right.
challenging your claim.
Right.
And that if you look at all these patents, introduction and things like that, they were very, very meticulously researched and articulated.
Yeah. This is the reason why Marconi got the patent on radio waves. And then later, after Nikola Tesla died, they went to court and got the patent back from Marconi, and it came back to Buckminster Fuller. Just because of these meticulous little details and who claims first and all of the court precedents involved. It's a giant game of attorneys and sharks. Joe, you put a link down in there in the Antonio Meucci. What was that about? He is called the, do you want to explain what you put down there, Joe?
Basically, he had discovered the telephone. If I remember correctly, Alexander Graham Bell actually reviewed his patent, denied it, and then he took credit for it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Same thing happened on television. Two independent guys created television. And because of the big money behind the one guy, a guy named Farnsworth, who was actually a Utah resident, created television the same time somebody else, but he didn't have the attorneys to do anything about it. I wish I had the actual quote, but there was a great joke on the internet back in when the internet first came out, and it was a little parody on Star Trek, and it was on the Borg, and the Borg were taking over the universe, and then Microsoft got involved, and they brought in their attorneys, and basically they buried the Borg in lawsuits, and that's how the Star Trek crew won against the Borg, was by filing lawsuits against them.
that's fantastic. There's a lot of, I don't know,
Yeah.
wisdom in that story.
Yeah. Do you remember that story, Joe, from the old days?
I don't, but I'll tell you what, that I will go back and check it out.
If you can find it, because I've looked all over for it, it's the most hilarious parody of all time. You know, the humans are dying, the Borg's got them beaten. All of a sudden, Gates comes out with his attorneys and he buries them. Anyway, okay. Any other comments or questions? I'm so sorry I interrupt with fun stuff for me. Okay, we're ready to move to the next page. And we probably can read a little more. We've got some time.
We absolutely do.
I think we want to go to the
While the USA, that's where we're
Yeah,
patent.
while a USA patent can be obtained for less than $200, a patent that the great corporations, patent attorneys see no way of circumventing requires expensively expert professional services. Added to this is the cost of world-around major nations' patent coverage, which foreign patents must be applied for and obtained because every country can now air deliver their inventions into any other country within less than a week. In contradistinction to a 6-month water delivery lag in 1900, the world around patent coverage cost about $50,000 in 1975. It was $30,000 in 1950 for obtaining each world-protected, probably court-sustainable infringement-defying patent. In every instance, I sought the services of those lawyers most widely acknowledged to be the champion patent attorneys of that moment in the specific category of my type of inventions. From time to time during the half century since I first obtained a patent, the patent attorneys of more than 100 of the world's most powerful corporations have called upon my patent attorneys to obtain a license under one or more of my patents. In every one of these instances, phrasing his statement in varying ways, The visiting powerful corporation attorney has said to my attorney, usually as a flattering but truthful, one professional to another, off the record remark, of course, the first thing my client asked me to do was to find a way of circumventing your client's patents. But you have written your claim so well that I was forced to advise my client to procure a license under your patent if indeed he wished to engage in the invention's manufacture without exposing himself to almost certainly devastating infringement expense. That statement discloses two truths. The first is that big business, which now makes its major profits out of know-how, deliberately steals know-how, wealth, whenever possible. The second is that I had not taken out patents. You would probably never have heard of me, nor would you have learned that an independently operating little individual, starting penniless and creditless, had indeed succeeded in inventing what I, as the half-century guinea pig B, the test case individual, have been able to accomplish.
Let's pause right there for a second. Let's pause right there, because the idea of guinea pig B is that he's talking about himself. And if we remember back when he's talked about his chronophile and his events of his life, he said that he was going to just be a guinea pig and live life from generalized principles rather than jump in the game like everybody else. And so now he calls himself guinea pig B. Okay. Did you have a comment, Ann?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's go.
Statement discloses two truths. The first is that
Okay,
big
you
business.
already read that.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
My half-century experience also discovered that natural unaccelerated lags existing between inventions and industrial uses in various technical categories, which occur as follows: in electronics, 2 years; aerodynamics, 5 years; automobiles, 10 years; railroading, 15 years; big city buildings, 25 years; single-family dwellings, 50 years. Clearly, these lags have consistently characterized the lengths of gestation periods in the different arts with which I was concerned. In the case of most of my inventions, the gestation lags have been far greater than the 17-year lifespan of patents in those arts. Patents in the 45 to 50 year invention and gestation rated single-family housing arts are financially worthless. I took out many patents in these arts. However, because it was in the field of human life protection, support, and accommodation that the worst socioeconomic problems existed. In 1927, the American Institute of Architects Journal published a plan for a single-family dwelling they felt to be an optimum single-family dwelling under the improving technical circumstances of 1927. It included electric and refrigeration instead of the old icebox, oil-burning furnaces instead of the human-shoveled stoked coal furnaces, etc. Concerned with my accelerating ephemeralization, I inventoried. Sorry.
Okay.
Inventoried all the design fixtures of that optimum single-family dwelling, its floor area, its volume, the number and placement of its windows, the number of lumens of light admitted all of its public plumbing and wired facilities, I'm sorry, insulation, etc. And then I calculated its complete weight, including all of its pipes and wires out to the city mains. It weighed 150 tons. Then,
Okay, hang on a second. So I just want to say about the previous page that he talked before about the big lag between when he invented something and when it finally got implemented, and it really frustrated him. It took 50 years for, in fact, if we recall in this discussion, I talked about Warren Buffett, who early on in his career, because suddenly modular homes started making their appearance, Warren Buffett looked at modular homes and found out how much more cheaply you could build a modular home than a stick-built house, and how much more structurally sound it was. Like a stick-built house in an earthquake just falls to the ground. A modular home in an earthquake floats on top of the ground. And even though the foundation may crumble, the home stays there. And all you got to do is jack up the home again, build a new foundation, and drop it down again. But Warren Buffett, seeing this cool innovation in housing, modular housing, bought Berkshire Company, which was the major funding of mobile homes at the time, and thought it was the future of everything. Well, Berkshire is still his basic company. It never achieved the potential because the uniform building codes in America they never accepted, even though the structures of these mobile homes were more sound than stick built, they didn't match the code and they couldn't get financed. And so here's Warren Buffett, who sees this big benefit, wants to jump in on the market, and the market regulations are so far behind the innovations, he cannot get his business off the ground. And that's exactly what Bucky's talking about here. So I just wanted to put that out. And we can continue to read, but it's 10:43. Do we want to read another paragraph or move to the
let's
next?
read the last paragraph.
All right,
In
let's read.
1927, the American Institute of Architects Journal published
We already read that. We already read that. It weighed 100.
Then using.
Sorry about that. Then using the most advanced aircraft engineering techniques and the highest performance aluminum alloys, etc., I designed a dwell-in-able environment control of the same volume and floor area that in every way provided facilities and degrees of comfort equal to those of AIA's optimum 1927 single-family dwelling. My aeronautical engineering counterpart single-family dwelling weighed only 3 tons, a fact that I proved 17 years later when, incorporating a logical interim technological improvements, we built the aircraft engineering prototype in Beech Aircraft's plant in Wichita, Kansas. The 3-ton to 150-ton weight ratio of the difference between the technical capabilities of the aircraft versus the home building arts clearly confirmed the reasonability of my working assumption that the accelerating ephemeralization of each science and technology might someday accomplish so much with so little that we could sustainingly take care of all humanity at a high standard of living than any have ever experienced, which would prove the Malthusian, only you or me doctrine to be completely fallacious. Having committed myself to processional existence, I now focused all my effort for the rest of my life on applying the highest science and technology directly to the realization of human living.
Okay, we should
Sorry,
pause.
guys.
sounds like the end. Thank you, Joe. Let's see what the next page looks like. Okay, most of my inventions. I'll find that here and we'll pick up there next time around. Want to end sharing and we'll, I found it right here in the book. And then we'll start our takeaways. So Joe, thanks for all that reading. And what's your, how you feeling and what's your takeaway from tonight?
You know, I'm feeling I'm feeling very fortunate that you know, for everybody's presence here this evening. You know, the one thing that has continuously we've come back to in some way, shape, or form is the continuous need to navigate the business waters, if you will, and as an entrepreneur. And that's what Bucky was experiencing. He talked a little bit earlier back in the book about how you know, many of the car makers were eventually being, you know, replaced, the entrepreneurs that built the company, with individuals that were more concerned about the bottom line, and how that the entrepreneurs were actually separated from the process that they have created, and that this had a huge impact on the quality of cars that were being produced. So what you're seeing here now this evening is where, you know, Bucky's talking about the patent process and how, you know, difficult that is. And I don't think things have changed all that much. You know, people like Bill Gates, their father, you know, he owned had been a partner in one of the biggest firms in Washington, D.C. Those types of things that really do help when you're trying to get something patent or go to market. So also the other thing is that you can see within this is where he's talking about the gestation period, seemingly in some cases being increased by, I think, regulation, which actually creates a lot of entry barriers for other entrepreneurs to be able to do these types of things. And I think that that's definitely worth noting. Lastly, you know, we talked a little bit about the Federal Reserve. I found that to be interesting, primarily because listening to a report earlier, actually a few weeks ago, we were, you know, having a discussion about how essentially this whole generation for the past 20 years are used to rates at zero. And, you know, that's not real and not feasible. And now people feel like their payments are out of control at 7%. And, you know, if they went back to the 80s, they realized they were paying 24%. So, you know, any case, ultimately, I'll leave it with this. Anne's got a really important role in the world, and it's breaking the mold of those education systems that actually tend to turn us into specialist workers that actually don't look beyond our positions. And so, you know, and getting into that was, I think, a very important point as well. So I really feel fortunate to be here. Anne, how do you feel? What are you taking away from the day?
Thanks, Joe. Okay, first I every week I take away something, and I get very excited when because my background is I'm really a language person, you know, and science, it was just the way science was made for us when we were young, right? It was just horrible. I didn't like it. But as an adult, I enjoyed watching Discovery programs and, you know, how things are made. And so when we started, in fact, some of the storybooks I did with my students, like there's one called Flowers for Algernon. They were explaining the speed, you know, his intellect moving forward, and at the same time, it's the rate of the degradation of his whole intellect was at the same speed. I was like, wow, that was explained in scientific terms, right? But in language form, I was like, oh, I understood that, you know. But my point is, coming to this meeting with all of you has made, like, I get so excited every time, you know, what was talked about, like it could even be months ago, and suddenly now I can connect them. It's all thanks to all of you here for making it possible for me to understand, right? And it is thrilling. Like last week, I think, I'm not sure, I think was it Manu was explaining something, and I could tell that was the 720 degrees right there. You know, I did have a chance to talk about it, but I was thrilled. I said, there, right there is the 720 degrees, you know. So, but more importantly now is about taking this force. And I think the main one I'm putting forward and to drive towards is that Commonwealth thing. So everything that we talk about will right towards that Commonwealth. And I was just sharing it yesterday with one of my partners who's coming on board to help me grow the kindergarten that we created, the curriculum and the whole pedagogy for the kindergarten. So I was sharing with them about Commonwealth, amongst others like the cosmic accounting, etc. And so the wife lived in Finland, you know, for about a year or two and studied there. And I said, then she said, yes, Finland is a country, because I was talking about Commonwealth. There are already countries that are doing that, right? And she says it's true, because in Finland, even if you do go to the smallest village, you do not find broken down shop doors and things like this. It was high tech. The houses were all nice, you know, and they had the trains getting there in and out. And there could be only 40 people living in that village, you know. And just this morning, I woke up at about 5. I couldn't sleep, so I put on the program on Netflix, Europe from Above, right? Europe from Above, and it was about Switzerland, and they were talking about cutting down, because all the homes are on slopes or at the bottom of slopes, right? And you're talking about the Alps. So they actually have the technology and the helicopter and all that are ready to cut down the trees that are dead, because it will not add to, you know, you need strong trees to hold on when the avalanche falls, so it doesn't roll the logs onto homes. And so this one particular area had only 40 homes. And yet they took it as seriously. And here comes the helicopter, and they had people who were, you know, who chopped down the chainsaw the whole thing, lifted it off, and that becomes firewood for the community of the 40 homes, you know. And the 40 homes were really, really nice homes. And that's exactly what I feel the Commonwealth is about. So I've talked to my people, and I'm going to talk to the ones who are coming forward with me to make the change, that we have to have a model and start it within our organization for this Commonwealth, for my team, as a model, so that we can talk about it. So I'm just putting it out there. And I know when you speak to the universe, then the universe will make it happen. So there. Thank you so much, guys. Okay.
Thank you, Anne.
And so that's Joe. Manu has not shared yet, right?
Yeah.
So Manu, how do you feel, and what's your takeaway today?
I feel first grateful and thankful for our contributions. I think they were rich, they were varied. We had many pauses where we discussed, you know, and then I think that we all grew in many directions. This morning for me, this afternoon for Anne, this late night for Joe, and this early night for Steve. A few things that I noted down. And Becky, basically, I mean, these were, you know, the first thing was to say the socio-economic is governed also by the general principle, the true one, the true social economy. And then he talked about a few things. Number one, you know, he mentioned the natural, unaccelerated lags existing between invention and industrial uses in various technical categories. I think this unaccelerated lags exist everywhere in many, many things. You need to acknowledge them and you need to account for them, right? So you need to be aware of them, acknowledge them, and be accountable and account for them. The second point that I noted is the power of a no, the decision to pivot, and the assumption of consequences of consequences. Consequences of consequences. 3, precision is cosmic gearing. 4, the role of a general education board. Coincidentally, the General Education Board was for 60 years. It opened its door in 1903, 1904, with Rockefeller's grant of, I don't know, $150,000.
Yeah.
And it closed in 1964, 60 years. And the Federal Reserve in 1913, in the financial ignorance sallowing of individuals. And then the final one is Bucky is a little bit after. It will come next time when we read it. He say, ideas are easy to come by. Reduction to practice is an arduous but inspirationally rewarding matter. Ideas are easy to come by. Reduction to practice is an arduous and inspirationally rewarding matter. And this makes me think of Confucius that say, knowledge without practice is useless.
Right.
Practice without knowledge is dangerous. So, reduction of ideas to practice is an arduous but inspirationally rewarding. You need knowledge and practice. So those are my biggest takeaway today. Otherwise, again, I repeat, I'm grateful and I give my love. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
I feel deep gratitude and appreciation for receiving your love, Manu, and that you send it to everyone here is a wonderful thing. There is not enough love in the world, and I love being on this call and being able to share the same spirit and appreciation for everyone here. We are living at such an amazing time in human history where there is complete, utter chaos created by the democratization of almost every aspect of the global democratization of almost every aspect of our society. I read some of the Wikipedia thing on this fellow Antonio Meucci, I think that's how you say it, Italian guy, who actually invented a telephone and had one in his own laboratory. But because of the wording in his patent, the patent was given to Thomas Edison or to Graham Bell, who basically stole the damn thing. I mean, and it's amazing how American history books celebrate the pirates. They celebrate Alexander Graham Bell. They celebrate Thomas Edison, and guys like Nikola Tesla. You know, nearly 100 years later, we find out there are people who were completely run over by the industrial complex. And Ray Dalio the other day was talking someplace, and I wrote it down here. He says, the way capitalism disperses profits is not sustainable, that we've got to redefine profitability in our world. I think the only saving grace, I mean, I would say things are freaking hopeless. You look at the US House of Representatives today, one idiot has the power to get McCarthy, leader of the House, kicked out. So now the House is in complete disarray. They can't pass a budget bill. We're approaching November. They passed a temporary budget bill to get us to November. And if our House of Representatives gets back together in time for November, it'll be a freaking miracle. And so what we're seeing is all these traditional imperialistic structures that have always benefited the rich, the 1%, who create lobbies, who, you know, where our latest pharmaceutical bill was written by the pharmacies that it was supposed to regulate. And that's the case with everything in America. The only hope is that children everywhere will make all of that irrelevant. And boy, I'll tell you, it's tough. I'm hoping you, Anne, where you are, that you are able to gather people around you with vision who aren't stuck in these old imperialistic, institutional, complex partitions. Wow. And if there's hope in the world, it'll be because of your students, and it'll be because of my grandkids who step out and just do what needs to be done in spite of what somebody says. I'm so excited. So this idea about the Commonwealth is so misunderstood in America. We've left it behind. And Anne, I wish I could remember where it was, but I was just listening to I'm going to ponder this. I was just listening to a podcast where they talked about spin-outs in universities, like MIT. They bring all these physicists there, and now students who are brilliant pick schools to go to where the colleges allow for a reasonable spin-out with a small percentage, but all the colleges get a percent of that business. I hope you design your models so that as your students go out and develop their business, that your school gets a percentage of those profits, and does it in a way that doesn't restrict or make the growth of that business incompatible. It might even be a stage thing. We're getting started, you take a smaller percent, but as they hit a certain percent of profit, you get a larger percent because they're paying you back for this education that you gave them. They're tithing their teachers. They're remembering the sources of inspiration, instead of, like so many basketball players and football players in America come out of the slums, they start making their $10 million a year and they forget where they came from. These schools have spin-out programs and spin-off programs where they actually they allow their students and their professors to develop a technology and then create a business, and they don't shackle them. They do it in a way that allows them to create that business and grow that business, and the school gets a percentage back for doing that. I don't know if you know about spin-outs, but I would learn about that and make that a part of your thing. Do you know about spin-outs?
Yes, I know of universities that do that. And what they also make their students do is, if they want I know some universities that if you want some universities, whatever comes out belongs to the universities for some. So the one in this MIT, was it? That sounds much better.
Yes.
And in fact, for some of these universities, if you want back your business that you created, you have to buy from the university.
Right.
So I've heard of some that did that, and it makes sense if they partner rather than own it, which was a shame. Yeah, I on our side we didn't, and we
that study MIT. What these guys were saying was that MIT and Stanford, University of California and MIT have really good models for encouraging entrepreneurship in their students, and the schools benefit greatly, and the students are benefited in their spin out because they're not shackled. And so I don't know. I wish I knew more about it, but I just don't. And if I can remember that podcast, I'll send you the link.
Okay, yes, please. Yep.
All right, cool. So
Thank you for that.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so glad you're on the call, and I'm so glad that you've maintained interest. And even though you've been gone for quite a while with this project or that project, building your business, living your mission, living your life, that you come back and share your insight every once in a while. That's really great. Joe and Manu, I've learned so much from Joe sending this link or that link. I didn't know who Ray Dalio was and it weren't for Joe. I didn't know about this Prussian education model if it weren't for Joe. There's a bunch of stuff that I've gotten from Joe and Manu. His fiendishly topological brain blows my mind. And I've just, so I'm just real honored to be with you guys here. So we have a mutual benefit society. Looking forward to others who normally join us to be part of this, Susan and Raffers and John and maybe Julian even one of these days again. Anyway, what a wonderful crowd we have. And let's keep it going and keep it growing. And we'll continue where we left off.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is the true Commonwealth.
Truly is.
Yes.
Peace.
You have a good sleep, eh? I see
I'm
you are
trying. I'm good.
you are
It's been a long.
But-
It's been a long.
but nice.
Since
nice to
Thursday.
give it all.
Thursday.
Listen.
Yes,
Since
thanks for
Thursday.
staying on with us.
Oh
Yeah.
no, it's a play. It's a privilege. So I want to make sure to do it.
Good.
So I'm looking forward to I have to be up in a few hours anyway. So
Right.
Eat the
And I
bag,
hope
man.
to be on your call tomorrow night about field theory.
I hope to be up.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see y'all.
Definitely,
Okay,
you can
take care.
definitely feel free to take
Bye.
over.
Bye.
Bye.